what if everything you call a problem was actually an invitation? What if the losses that hurt you were disguised liberations? Maybe you're not being punished, maybe you're being prepared. We live attached to a comforting illusion that life moves in a straight, predictable, fair line. But true growth rarely happens in comfort. It comes in the form of breakdowns, silence, and unexpected new beginnings. Sometimes, life needs to completely dismantle you to show you who you really are, away from the masks, fears, and inherited narratives. Every great transformation begins with an internal earthquake. It's no coincidence that life's most powerful turning points are preceded by moments of pain, doubt, and loss of direction. The idea that you need to build to evolve is incomplete. Before that, something in you has to fall apart. Old beliefs, ancient fears, roles you play just to fit in. Destruction in this context isn't the end, it's the prelude to the new. Like soil that only blooms after being burned. Internal collapse is unsettling because it doesn't warn you. Suddenly, what once made sense no longer does. Motivations empty, cycles close, and even your own identity starts to feel fragile. This is where many people try to go back. But you can't. Because the deconstruction has already begun. And it will only stop when everything false inside you ceases to exist. Nietzsche said, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." And he knew what he was talking about. It's common to feel punished in these moments, that something has gone wrong. But what if it's the opposite? What if what you call pain is actually the most intimate preparation the universe could offer you? It's not punishing you, it's pulling you, almost violently, away from what no longer has a place in who you're becoming. To truly transform is like being reborn. But every rebirth demands, first, a kind of death. Death of the ego, of the illusion of control, of pride. What breaks inside you is exactly what was holding back your expansion. And what hurts as it leaves is precisely what you no longer need to carry. When you understand this, even the pain gains purpose. Because you're not being destroyed. You're being refined. When the ground disappears from beneath your feet, the natural impulse is to panic. After all, we live in pursuit of predictability, stability, control. But chaos, this feared character, almost always arrives disguised as disaster, hiding what is, in fact, a rebirth in motion. What looks like ruin may be realignment. What looks like an end may be a beginning. It's in the breakdown of the old order that space is made for the new to emerge. Have you noticed how the major changes in life rarely arrive with flowers and invitations? They come abruptly. A breakup, a loss, an emotional collapse. It's in these moments that the old structure proves unsustainable. Not because it was bad, but because you've outgrown it. Sometimes, the universe itself forces the breakdown because you wouldn't have the courage to walk away on your own. Chaos, in this sense, is a divine intervention. And it's curious how we can only understand this later. When we look back and realize, what seemed like my end was actually the only way to rebuild myself. The old had to fall. Space was needed so a new version of you could be born. And that new version requires sacrifices, including parts of yourself you once believed were essential. Order and chaos are not opposites, they're partners. One dances with the other in the rhythm of your evolution. What breaks, in truth, realigns. What disappears, reveals. Maybe the universe never took anything from you. Maybe it just returned you to yourself, layer by layer. When you accept chaos as an invitation to transformation, even fear changes form. Because you understand, it's not the world that's falling apart. It's you who's emerging. There's a common illusion that self-awareness is a path of light, peace, and serenity. But Jung warned us, awakening hurts. And not because fate is cruel, but because removing masks requires courage. Opening your eyes means seeing what was once denied. And to truly see is a radical act. That's why awareness doesn't arrive gently, it kicks down the doors of the soul you kept locked for protection. When the universe confronts you with crises, it's not testing you in a punitive way. It's revealing you. As if it were saying, look at this. This is also you. Old fears, forgotten traumas, hidden desires, everything comes to the surface not to hurt you but to free you. Because there's no way to evolve while carrying denied shadows. What you avoid facing grows in the dark. And it's precisely in crisis that this light breaks through. The soul doesn't speak Portuguese, English, or any human language. It speaks through sensations, intuitions, and often through discomfort. When something feels tight inside, it's usually a request for change that's gone unanswered. Emotional pain is the body screaming what the mind insisted on ignoring. That's why crisis is a language. It's the soul saying that it's time to break through self-imposed limits. That there's a greater version of you wanting to emerge. Waking up isn't about being fine. It's about being whole. And that involves touching your wounds, acknowledging your abysses, and paradoxically being grateful for them. Because it's there, in the most intimate pain, that the key to expansion lies. The universe doesn't want to see you fall, it wants to see you rise differently. More lucid, more conscious, more real. Suffering isn't punishment. It's a process of revelation. Have you noticed how certain events seem to repeat with almost mystical precision? People who show up out of nowhere, phrases that repeat in different contexts, symbols that follow you as if they had something urgent to say. Jung called this synchronicity, the meaningful coincidence of events that have no causal relationship but carry a powerful symbolic message. The universe speaks to those who have learned to listen. These patterns aren't random. When something keeps repeating in your life, it's not because you're unlucky, it's because you're being called. There's intelligence behind these repetitions, and it's not trying to test you but to guide you. The universe doesn't shout, it whispers. And these whispers come in the form of patterns that fit together like pieces of an invisible puzzle. Realizing this changes everything. Imagine that each repetition is an invitation. An invitation to look within, to review behaviors, to notice where you keep insisting on paths that have already proven fruitless. A simple example: relationships that always end the same way. That's not bad luck, it's a mirror. The pattern shows where you're still stuck. And until you understand the lesson, it comes back. Because the universe is persistent when it wants to teach something you refuse to see. These synchronicities are maps. Signs that something is being aligned behind the scenes of your life. Nothing is random once you start paying attention with presence. The challenge is to stop looking for logical explanations and start listening with your heart. Because everything that repeats is pushing you toward something greater. And when you accept the invitation, you realize it wasn't coincidence. It was destiny knocking on your door. The most decisive moments in life don't come with announcements. They show up as absence. That opportunity that never came, that relationship that ended, that deafening silence when all you needed was a sign. It's easy to think something went wrong. But what if what you call loss is actually liberation? Not everything that leaves is a loss. Sometimes it's relief in disguise. There is hidden wisdom in everything that's taken away. Many times what we cling to the most is what most limits our growth. Old fears, expired relationships, identities that no longer fit. The universe, with its almost surgical precision, comes and removes them. Not out of cruelty but out of coherence. Because you can't cross certain portals carrying baggage that no longer belongs to your path. And it's curious how we only realize this afterward. The pain of rejection or loss feels unbearable at first. But after the impact, clarity comes. What seemed essential was, in fact, a subtle obstacle. What you feared losing most was what was keeping you in the same place. And what seemed like the universe's silence was actually it speaking in the only language you hadn't learned yet. The language of fertile emptiness. So, when everything abandons you, maybe it's life giving you a push. And when the universe removes, maybe it's saying, this no longer belongs to you. It's an invitation to trust, even without understanding. Because the true test isn't losing. It's continuing to walk even without what you thought was indispensable. And then in the middle of nowhere you discover, you're still whole. And lighter. Every time you try to change your life, your path, or break old patterns, something inside you stirs. It's not coincidence, it's resistance. The old identity, even when it no longer serves, wants to survive. It was built with time, experiences, inherited beliefs. And because of that, it doesn't dissolve easily. It screams, sabotages, rationalizes. But what it truly fears isn't failure. It's the unknown. The deepest change doesn't happen in the environment, but in identity. And identity is attachment. We get attached even to suffering, if it gives us the illusion of control. So, when a new version of yourself starts to form, the ego panics. It asks, who will we be without this? Without this habit, this persona, this addictive cycle? That's why growing hurts. Not because of the new, but because of grieving the old. The subtlest test in life is this: to resist or to surrender. Resistance is comfortable. It keeps you in the familiar even if it's unhappy. Surrender, on the other hand, requires faith. You don't know what you'll find. But you have a sense that's where freedom lies. The challenge isn't choosing between good and bad, it's choosing between what holds you back and what sets you free. And that takes courage to let die what once protected you. This struggle between the old and the new isn't a flaw, it's part of the process. You don't need to eliminate the old version. You just need to stop identifying with it. Little by little, with conscious choices, you shift from one narrative to another. And it's in that space between a dying identity and a new one being born that the miracle happens. You are reborn. Not as someone else. But as who you've always been before you had to hide. There are phases in life when nothing seems to work. Doors don't open, paths close, answers vanish. It feels like paralysis, as if the whole world is conspiring against your progress. But what seems like a block may actually be redirection. The universe, with its silent intelligence, sometimes stops you not to punish you, but to save you from a path that's no longer yours. Stagnation hurts because it confronts our urgency. We want movement, we want progress. But what if stopping is the wisest move in that moment? Often, only in the silence of pause can we hear what the rush was drowning out. The misalignment. The body knows, the mind senses, the soul warns. But we insist on going on. Until everything jams. And then we're forced to look inward. This is the point where many despair. But that not moving has a purpose. It's as if the universe says, you will not proceed in this automatic mode anymore. Because it's not about moving just to move, but about aligning intention, purpose, and truth. Life only flows when you're on the right path. And the right path isn't always the easiest, but it's the one that resonates with who you truly are. So, if everything seems stuck, maybe you need to move inward. Reevaluate choices, reformulate beliefs, reconnect with your inner voice. Outer stagnation is a reflection of inner misalignment. But it's also a gift, an invitation to realignment. Because many times, it's when everything halts that the true path begins to reveal itself, not outside but within you. To overcome isn't to forget, it's to integrate. And life knows that. That's why now and then it repeats scenes, faces, dynamics. Not out of cruelty but as a kind of final review. As if it were asking, did you really learn or just walk away? The truth is, evolution isn't measured by what you avoid, but by what you face with renewed awareness. That's when old patterns return, not as punishment but as mirrors. These repetitions aren't regressions. They're subtle tests of inner coherence. The manipulative person shows up again, but now you recognize them. The toxic cycle hints at returning, but now you see the signs. The automatic reaction hits, but you breathe before acting. That's victory. Not over others, over yourself. Because the real challenge was never the world's behavior, but how you position yourself before it. Many believe that overcoming means no longer feeling. That forgiveness is forgetting. But emotional growth is more mature than that. You can remember, feel, even falter for a moment and still be on another level. What matters is your ability not to abandon yourself. Not to betray the boundaries you worked so hard to build. Coherence becomes a compass. Integrity a shield. When these tests come, don't blame yourself. Acknowledge, there's a chance to solidify who you've become. Because life doesn't want you to go back to who you were, it wants you to confirm through real choices that you're not anymore. The cycle only ends when, faced with the same scenario, you act like someone who finally understood. Then the pattern disappears. Because you are no longer the same person. We live surrounded by stimuli that make us believe change is about doing, achieving, acting. But there's a subtler and more powerful layer of transformation, the internal one. That's where it all begins. Before the world around you responds, you need to shift your own frequency. And frequency here isn't cheap optimism. It's a state of being. It's alignment between thought, emotion, and intention. Reality is like a highly sensitive mirror. It reflects not what you want but what you vibrate. It might sound mystical, but it's physical. Your inner energy shapes the way you perceive and interact with the world. That's why it's useless to try to force external change if, inside, you still carry the same insecurities, fears, and patterns. The universe doesn't read words, it reads coherence. It's common to underestimate what can't be seen. Society values tangible results. But true alchemy happens in the invisible. When you change inside, even if no one notices at first, something starts to move. A new field is formed. And little by little, almost imperceptibly, your reality begins to reflect that new version. People change. Situations rearrange. The world responds to your new vibration. This is a solitary, silent change. But it's also the most solid. Because no one can take from you what you conquered within. And once you change on the inside, there's no going back. The invisible transformation is the prelude to the visible manifestation. What seemed like stagnation was just incubation. And when you finally see yourself as different, the world has no choice but to change with you. Many people spend their lives asking, dreaming, wishing. But few ask themselves, am I ready to sustain what I'm asking for? Because receiving something big isn't the end point, it's the beginning of a new level of responsibility. The universe doesn't give what your consciousness can't carry. And that's not punishment. It's protection. Because a gift without preparation becomes a burden. A dream without internal structure crumbles. There's a difference between wanting and being ready. You may desire love, success, purpose. But if you still sabotage yourself, if you still believe you don't deserve it, if you still carry unresolved guilt and fear, the very achievement slips away. Not by bad luck, but by vibrational coherence. The universe understands frequencies, not arguments. And only those aligned with their own light are able to live in it without fear. Maintaining something is more challenging than achieving it. It requires emotional maturity, self-awareness, and a rare ability not to go back into hiding. Because when you shine, everything around recalibrates. Your relationships change, your habits need updating, your old identity screams. And that's when the real test begins. Will you shrink to fit back into old spaces or expand until they no longer make sense? Receiving is just the first stage. What really matters is what you do with what you receive. Only those who can hold their own light are ready to live in it. And that takes firmness, humility, and courage to keep growing even when everything inside you wants to shrink again. When the universe sees you're ready, it delivers. But it only delivers what you're already capable of sustaining inside. Deep down, life doesn't want you to win, it wants you to awaken. It wants you to see yourself, to face yourself, to finally understand that everything that seemed like an obstacle was, in fact, a portal. You are not what you lost nor what you suffered. You are what survived all that and still chose to keep going. With more awareness, with more presence, with more truth. Life will keep testing because the process is ongoing. But now, chaos is an ally. Pain is a language. And the signs are everywhere. I want to invite you not to end this reflection here. Share in the comments, which of these topics touched you the most? What is crumbling in you and may actually be being rebuilt? If this conversation touched you, turn on notifications and subscribe to the channel.